My name is Stephen Caldwell, and back in the summer of 2020, my world in Boise, Idaho, shattered like a dropped mason jar at a backyard barbecue. Sarah and I had been married for 8 years, high school sweethearts from the same dusty streets of Eagle, where we'd sneak beers by the Boise River and dream about escaping to something bigger. She was the firecracker, always sketching anatomy books in the margins of her notebooks, talking endlessly about med school. I was the steady one, a mechanic at a Ford dealership on Fairview Avenue, fixing transmissions while she chased her white coat. We were the classic American couple, young, broke, but unbreakable. Or so I thought. The divorce hit like a monsoon in the desert. It wasn't one big blow-up, no screaming matches over burnt pot roast or forgotten anniversaries. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts, her late nights studying turning into all-nighters at coffee shops in downtown Boise, my overtime shifts ignored for her group study sessions with ambitious undergrads from Boise State. She'd come home smelling like vanilla lattes and someone else's cologne. Nothing physical, mind you, just that nagging psychological drift where conversations turned into monologues about her future, and I faded into the background like an old radio station losing signal. On July 15th, the papers were signed at the Ada County Courthouse. Judge Harlan, ironic name, given our shared last one back then, banged the gavel at 2 p.m. sharp. Sarah didn't cry. She didn't even glance back as we walked out into the blinding Idaho sun. I stood there on the steps, 32 years old, feeling like a deflated balloon at a kid's birthday party, while she pulled out her phone and texted furiously. "Freedom tastes sweet," she said, more to the screen than to me. By 5 p.m., she was at Humpin' Hannah's, the dive bar on Grove Street famous for its mechanical bull and cheap PBRs. I know because a mutual friend, Tommy from our old bowling league, sent me a photo, Sarah in the center of a circle of her med school pals, guys and gals from Seattle and Portland transplants, all toasting with neon shots. She wore that red sundress I'd bought her for our anniversary in Coeur d'Alene, the one that hugged her like a second skin, and her laugh in the blurry image cut deeper than any knife. The caption? New chapter who dis? #divorce party #Boise strong. I deleted it, blocked her, and drove home to our empty split level on Cole Road, where the fridge hummed like a lonely heartbeat. That night, I drank a 6-pack of Coors and stared at the ceiling fan, replaying every moment I'd failed her. Was it my fault for not pushing her harder toward her dreams? Or hers for outgrowing me like a snake shedding skin? The psychological weight of it all, the way she'd gaslight me into thinking I was holding her back, lingered like exhaust fumes. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., convinced I'd heard her voice in the vents, whispering doubts. But life in Boise ground on. I sold the house, kept the truck, and threw myself into work, eventually landing a gig managing the parts department at a bigger shop in Meridian. Dates came and went, nice women from Nampa or Caldwell, teachers and nurses who saw the divorced dad badge on my Bumble profile and swiped right out of pity. None stuck. Sarah's shadow was too long. 5 years blurred by in a haze of oil changes and Broncos games on Sundays at the local tavern. By 2025, I was 37, grayer at the temples, living in a modest ranch style in Eagle with a golden retriever named Boise who didn't judge my takeout habits. I'd heard whispers about Sarah through the grapevine. Tommy mentioned she'd aced her residency at the University of Washington in Seattle, specializing in gynecology. Top of her class, he'd said over wings at the Boise Spectrum. Practicing now in Portland at some fancy clinic in the Pearl District. I nodded, swallowed the bitterness like bad coffee, and changed the subject to the weather. Portland. Of course. That rainy hipster haven where she'd always said she'd thrive, far from Idaho's conservative grip. It started with a letter. Not an email. Those were too traceable, too casual. A real envelope, cream-colored and crisp, slid under my door on a Tuesday in March. No stamp, no return address, just my name in elegant script. Stephen Caldwell. Inside was a single sheet of oak tree letterhead from her clinic, the Willamette Women's Health Center. The words were typed, precise as a scalpel. Miss me yet? The past isn't buried as deep as you think. Check the news from Boise tomorrow. This. My heart slammed like a V8 engine redlining. Sarah. It had to be. Who else would toy with me like this, dredging up ghosts after half a decade? I burned it in the sink that night, watching the flames curl the edges black, but sleep evaded me. The psychological pull was immediate, a siren's call, reeling me back into the orbit I'd escaped. Was this her way of celebrating another milestone? Her board certification, maybe? Or just boredom in her polished life? By morning, the local news on KTVB was buzzing. A cold case from 2021 cracked open. Rebecca Langford, a 28-year-old from Meridian, had died under suspicious circumstances during a routine procedure at a Boise clinic, not Sarah's, but one where she'd rotated as a resident. Botched surgery, they said. But now, with new evidence, whispers of cover-ups and falsified records. And there, in the grainy photo from 5 years back, was Sarah, fresh-faced in turn, smiling beside the attending physician, Dr. Harlan Voss. Wait, Voss? The same last name as our divorce judge? Coincidence? My gut twisted. I shouldn't have dug. But obsession is a thief, stealing reason one late-night Google search at a time. By Friday, I'd driven the 5 hours to Portland, Boise's pickup parked in a lot near the Burnside Bridge, rain slicking the windshield like tears. The Willamette Women's Health Center was a glass and steel oasis in the Pearl District, all exposed brick and fern walls, the kind of place where Portlandia types sipped oat milk lattes in the waiting room. I posed as a concerned uncle, inquiring about a fictional niece's appointment, just to catch a glimpse. There she was, Dr. Sarah Whitaker now, remarried to some venture capitalist named Greg from Lake Oswego, according to her LinkedIn I'd stalked. She glided through the lobby in scrubs and a white coat, hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, consulting charts with the poise of someone who'd conquered mountains. Our eyes met for a split second across the room. Hers widened, then narrowed, a flicker of recognition, then calculation. She turned away, but not before I saw the ghost of that red sundress smile. That night, another letter waited at my motel on Sandy Boulevard. Curiosity killed the mechanic. Stay in Idaho. Or don't. Enclosed was a photocopy of Rebecca Langford's autopsy report, redacted, but damning. Elevated dosage errors, undocumented allergies. Sarah's signature scrawled at the bottom as the assisting resident. My hands shook as I pieced it together. Had she known? Covered it up? The psychological affair ignited then, not touches or stolen kisses, but a mental chess game where she anticipated my every move, baiting me with breadcrumbs of guilt and intrigue. To relive the power dynamic of our marriage, where she'd always been 3 steps ahead. Or something darker, a confession she couldn't voice aloud? I returned to Boise, but the hooks were set. Emails started, anonymous, from a burner account traced to a VPN in Seattle. Clips of old voicemails I'd left her during the divorce, edited with eerie overlays of hospital beeps. You always fix things, Stephen. But some breaks can't be mended. Each one chipped at my sanity, turning my eagle home into a pressure cooker. Boise, with his wet nose against my leg, sensed it. He'd whine at shadows, following me from room to room. I confided in Tommy over beers at the Fork, our old spot in downtown Boise. She's messing with your head, man, he said, nursing a stout. Like that time in 18 when she forgot your birthday to study for them cats. Classic Sarah, emotional jujitsu. He was right. It was never about fists or fury. It was her ability to burrow into your psyche, planting seeds of doubt that bloomed into nightmares. The crime unraveled in layers, like stripping a corroded carburetor. I hired a PI buddy from my dealership days, Lena from Twin Falls, who owed me for a free brake job. She dug discreetly. Turns out, Dr. Voss, the judge's brother, small world Idaho, was Sarah's mentor during residency. He'd pulled strings for her acceptance at UW, but whispers in Boise's medical grapevine said he'd buried more than one mishap. Rebecca wasn't the first. A nurse from Nampa had flagged irregularities back in 2019, only to be relocated to a clinic in Spokane. Lena's report landed in my inbox, forged timestamps on digital records, payments funneled through a Shell LLC in Vancouver, Washington. Sarah's name threaded through it all, not the mastermind, but the enabler, the one who signed off with trembling hands to protect her golden ticket. Suspense coiled tighter when Voss called me. How he got my number? Easy, public records from the divorce. His voice was gravel over the line, like tires on 84 gravel. Mr. Caldwell, your ex has a bright future. Don't tarnish it with ghost stories. It was a warning wrapped in velvet, but the threat hummed underneath. That night, my truck's brakes failed on a test drive, pads worn clean through, though I'd checked them myself 2 days prior. Sabotage? Or paranoia? The psychological toll mounted. I jolt awake, convinced Sarah was in the house, her presence a chill draft down the hallway. Emails escalated to attachments, blurry photos of me at the grocery in Eagle, time-stamped from a coffee shop in Portland. She was watching or paying someone to. The affair was in the anticipation, the what-ifs. What if I exposed her? What if she broke me first? The breaking point came in May, under a sky-bruised purple over the Boise foothills. Lena uncovered the linchpin, a hidden server in Voss's office at the old Boise clinic, now shuttered, holding unredacted files. We broke in under cover of a maintenance call, me in overalls, Lena posing as a subcontractor from Meridian Plumbing. Heart pounding like a jackhammer, we slipped through the back door off Main Street, flashlights cutting shadows in dust motes. The server room smelled of mildew and regret, humming faintly like a dying heart. Files downloaded in agonizing seconds. Rebecca's full chart, plus 2 more, women from Caldwell and Cuna, silenced by settlements and NDAs. Sarah's notes, meticulous, almost tender, detailing patient education gaps that weren't gaps at all. Cover for Voss's ego, his refusal to admit errors in a field where perfection was God. But there, buried in metadata, was the twist that gutted me. An email chain from 2020, the week of our divorce. Sarah to Voss. The Langford case is clean, but I need out of Boise. Stephen, he's anchoring me. Approve my transfer? Voss's reply. Leverage the divorce for a fresh start. I've got your back, always have. She'd traded our marriage for absolution, weaving me into her escape without a backward glance. The emotional flood hit then, hot and unrelenting. Not just betrayal, but the realization that our love had been collateral in her ascent. I wasn't a husband, I was a rung on her ladder. We leaked the files anonymously to the Idaho Statesman and a whistleblower site run by ex-nurses in Spokane. The story exploded, headlines from Boise to Portland, med malpractice ring exposed, prominent Seattle doc linked to Idaho cover-up. Voss resigned by dawn, facing charges in Ada County Court. Sarah? Suspended pending investigation, her Pearl District facade cracking under flashbulbs. She called me that afternoon, from a blocked number, voice a raw wire. Stephen, you don't understand. It was survival. You were the only one who ever saw me break. Tears? Maybe. Or manipulation's finest hour. I celebrated that night because I was terrified of failing, of dragging you down. It's karma's joke. I hung up, the psychological chains snapping like rusted links. No grand confrontation in a rainy Portland park, no tearful reunion over pie at a Boise diner. Just silence, finally. The affair ended not with a bang, but an exhale, the slow release of 5 years' worth of mental knots. Cops questioned me, but Lena's tracks were clean. I walked free, a ghost in my own story. Now, autumn 2025, I walk Boise with Boise the dog, leaves crunching underfoot like forgotten promises. Sarah's trial looms in federal court in Seattle, Voss her co-defendant in a web of deceit that snared 3 lives. I don't watch the news anymore. Therapy in Eagle helps. Dr. Ramirez, a no-nonsense Latina from Nampa, calls it narrative reclamation. I'm rewriting mine, not the broken ex, but the man who fixed the unfixable one last time. Regret lingers, a soft ache like arthritis before rain. Did I love her enough to forgive? Or hate her enough to destroy? The truth is murkier, a psychological haze where emotion and suspense blur. But in quiet moments by the river, where we once carved initials into cottonwoods, I wonder, if she'd stayed, would we have mended? Or broken worse? Freedom tastes bittersweet, Sarah. Turns out it's the only flavor that sticks.